I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with actor, director, and producer Tim DeKay. You may know Tim from White Collar, Carnival. He was in the Bizarro Jerry episode of Seinfeld, as well as American Crime and Here and Now. Plus, he's in the Paramount Channel TV show 68 Whiskey. In this episode, we talk about everything from where he grew up to what got him into acting. He tells us some stories from the sets of different shows he was on and been a part of. We talk about how he got to live most of the fantasy of tens of millions of 25 to 35-year-old males. And finally, we talk about his work voicing the audiobooks of the Lucky Dey series of detective novels written by previous guests of the show, Doug Richardson. So enjoy, folks. This is my conversation with the great Tim DeKay.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Tim DeKay. How are you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you doing?
I am wonderflonium. Thank you for asking. Now, so Tim, tell me about when you were born. Where were you born and raised, man?
Steve, I was born upstate New York, way back shortly after the car was invented. And I grew up in a great area, upstate New York. Specifically, Ithaca, New York is where Cornell University and Ithaca College are located. There's a phrase up there called centrally isolated. It takes a while to get to Ithaca from either New York City or larger metropolitan areas. But once you get up there, it is gorgeous. There's a lot of farmland up there. There are rolling hills, the Finger Lakes. If I could have, I would have raised my kids there. But I work at the plant, and the plant is in Los Angeles and New York City. So I found myself here in L.A.
When did you make that move?
To L.A.?
Yeah.
Back in 95, we moved out here. So I had gotten a play called Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, and I was going to go do that play up in San Francisco. And my wife and I had been talking about L.A. It's a decision every actor has to make at some point, whether he or she is going to be in New York and do New York and every so often go out to LA, or move to LA and try to be bi-coastal that way. You know, to be bi-coastal, that was the phrase back when I was younger. I don't know if it's still today or not. Anyway, I had gotten cast in a West Coast premiere of the Tom Stoppard play, and my wife and I said, okay, this is the opportunity. It has presented itself. Let's move out and let's go to LA a month before rehearsals start in San Francisco, and we'll hunker down in LA and I'll go up to San Francisco, do the play. So we got in our 1987 Volvo and drove from New York City via the south. We took 40 and stopped in Phoenix to see her family and then went up to LA. And we were so poor that we said no air conditioning in the car because it eats up gas, for only 2 hours in the afternoon while we were driving. Other than that, we had to have the windows rolled down. So we yelled a lot when we were driving across the country.
Like any good married couple does.
That's right. Yeah, but we had a great time. It was a great time. And it's funny, I haven't thought about that for a while, until right now that we're talking about it.
Now, at the beginning of that story, you were unclear as to whether or not bicoastal was still a phrase that the kids are saying. And I will assure you that it is, but it refers to if you live in New York, but you identify as living in L.A.
Oh, interesting.
No, I'm just kidding. So your mom was a school teacher and your dad was a salesman, right?
Yeah.
What grades did your mom teach?
He was teaching in third grade, and then she taught in the enrichment program. I went to a very small public school. There were 87 of us graduated. And of those 87, I think 60 of us started kindergarten together or something like that.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. It was, I could be romanticizing that second number, but it was small, rural dairy farming country.
Wow.
So at my school, either your mom and dad were somehow associated with Cornell or Ithaca College, or they had a farm. And that's how I was raised. And we had a wonderful school district there, and they still do. And my mom was a teacher. She did some theater back in the day. My dad never did any theater, but he's an observer of behavior and people, and which is a big part of what acting is about. And so I learned from both of them there was a bit of a seed that germinated and made me think more about acting. But they certainly didn't encourage it, but they supported it.
Well, I think that, being a salesman is a lot like acting. I mean, you're selling a character, and when you go into auditions, you're selling yourself. So I think there's a lot of overlap there.
There is, and understanding, to walk into one client's establishment is different. You behave differently for one client than you do another. And that's from reading people and understanding the relationships that you have with them, which is so key in acting.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And as far as the salesman aspect of it, everybody go back and watch Tommy Boy.
That's right.
That's a clinic in salesmanship. I mean, once he finally flips that switch and he's able to, manipulate himself or maneuver himself to each individual client, that's when all the good stuff happens. So
it
good
is
on you, man. What did your dad sell?
He sold wine and liquor.
I'll take some.
Yeah, okay, great. We'll have it delivered. Yeah, he sold wine and liquor for many years, and he always said that he was fortunate because people will drink when they're happy and they'll drink when they're sad.
You know what?
Yeah?
I have spoken with several Mary Kay national and area sales directors, and that's what they also say about cosmetics. From what I've learned talking to different people, there's really just two recession-proof industries, and it's alcohol and cosmetics.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because the ladies got to put stuff on to make them feel better, even when times are tough, and whatnot. And there you go. And both of them, you end up washing them down the sink or someplace else, and you just got to go get some more.
They're both consumable products. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that you played baseball in college, and a little.
Oh, so briefly.
Yes, and you did plays in and after college, but when did you know that acting was something that you wanted to pursue as a career?
That's a great question. I think for some people that moment is early on. For some people it's later in their life. I had done plays all through elementary, high school, and then in college. And after I graduated from college, I had a good job. I bought a car. I had a townhouse with two of my buddies from college, and I was living the yuppie life, or so I thought. I was working, loved my job, put on my suit, and then after work, I would do some local community theater play, and it would just take up all of my time after I worked. And I loved it. I just had this moment where I thought, acting is my life. Theater is my life. And it was theater at the time. It wasn't film or television. And I wondered if I could make it my livelihood. That is when I started to take classes at Syracuse University in directing, actually, because they didn't have a master's program in acting. And then when I did a year part-time at Syracuse, that was when I applied to Rutgers to get my master's there. And then once I quit my job and went all in down to Rutgers, then I knew this is it. It's all or nothing right now. Because I didn't want to wake up at 40 or whatever age and wonder what if.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about how you don't regret the things you did as much as you regret the things you didn't do. So, take that shot. So I live in a super small town right outside of San Antonio, and we have a local community theater, and it's like 80 seats or something like that.
Yeah.
And they do one play a month for, I think, 9 months of the year, and then they do they have the high school troupe come in and do a couple of plays or whatever those other months. My wife and I, we have season tickets, and it is some of the most fun that we have all year is going to these tiny little theaters.
Yeah.
I think we've seen probably 15 or somewhere around 12 or 15 of their performances.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful you're doing that.
Oh, we love it.
That's great. You're supporting local theater. That's terrific.
Oh, heck yes. Heck yes. And it's so cool, like you go into the bank and then you see the guy who played that guy in that thing.
Yes.
In our little small town. It's so wonderful.
It is wonderful.
And it's so close to our house we could walk. I mean, it's so convenient and lovely. It's just wonderful. So everybody, I encourage you to go check out your local community theater. You might not think that you're going to love it, but you are going to love it. And generally they're affordable, so it's an affordable risk.
Yes, it is.
Go spend whatever, $20, $10, whatever it is. And if you don't like it, well, then you only spent that much money, but at least give it a shot. It is so much fun.
I'm so glad you made that pitch. It's true. I would imagine like your town, there are a bunch of small towns throughout this country and larger towns, be it Seattle or Denver, and places where I've worked like that in regional theaters, be it a professional regional theater where people are getting paid to act, or community theater where they're just doing it for fun. You're going to see some really good work. And I think that's so great that you promote that, because you're right. There's nothing more fun than walking into local grocery store and then seeing, hey, I saw you last week on stage. You were wonderful as Scrooge or whomever.
Yes, it is really so much fun. And it's so funny because the people in their regular daytime jobs, clearly that's a whole different mindset, because they look more confused than ever when you're like, hey, I recognize you from the thing. And they're like, oh, I'm at a bank. What are you talking about? Oh, that thing. Yeah, that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Now, did you say that did you have a master's in acting?
I did. I got a master's in fine arts. I hear my dog barking right now. I got a master's in fine arts at Rutgers University. I think maybe I took one class in undergrad in acting, but other than that, I was just taking business classes. So,
can I ask you a question without you getting offended?
Of course.
Why did you get a master's? Why didn't you just go, take some acting classes and move to Hollywood?
That's a good question. And if any young actor is thinking about that, my advice, because I almost did that. Here's what I did. And man, did I roll the dice. I went down and I thought, Rutgers, that's where I want to go. Bill Esper, rest in peace at the time, was the teacher there, and he was in charge of the program, and he was the eminent and prominent teacher of Meisner, which was a certain technique, and it had a great program. And a lot of these graduate programs that have some prestige, they have what's called leagues or showcases after the 3 years. And that's when every agent in New York, every manager in New York comes and sees you do a couple scenes. If they haven't already, come and seen you in a play there. So your career starts roughly once you enter a graduate program, because you have connections, you have professional directors who are there to direct you in a school play, and then 3 years later or 2 years later or a month later say, I want you to come do this play at Cleveland Rep or Cincinnati Playhouse or whatever. And the other thing, I was rough around the edges as an actor, and I needed that training. I think you need that vocabulary. I'm a firm believer in going to school, just so you have some kind of vocabulary. You have something to fall back on should you find yourself in a scene or in a particular play or movie and be confused and not know exactly what you're doing. There are certain blocks and certain stepping stones and tactics that are taught in school that allow you to hold on to something in real life and get to the place that you need to get to in a scene. If that makes sense. I hope it does.
It does make sense. Can you give me maybe the best lesson you learned about the audition process in college? Maybe some advice you received from Ed Stern?
Oh, wow. Ed Stern. Yeah. So, the greatest thing is to be completely prepared. Know what you're going to do in the room. And in the room is in the audition room, and own it. If I'm fully prepared, I fully know what I'm going to do with the scene. I go in there so excited to show them what I have. Because, and for those that are thinking about this crazy business. The people that are sitting in the chairs, on the couch, on the other side of the desk, however you want to phrase it, those folks, those producers, those directors, they want you to do well. They want you to do well and have their job become easy and say, yeah, that's the guy. That's him. So own that. Walk in that room and to have a little bit of small talk, but get right to the scene. Get right to the scene and do it the way you have worked on it over and over and over and over and over again.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Guess what, Streetwalkers? The gear is here. A bunch of you have been asking for quite some time, and now finally it's here. Head over to FascinationStreetPod.com and check out the Gear tab. There, you'll find all kinds of FSP items to tickle your fancy. T-shirts, coffee mugs, sticker packs, pins, buttons, coasters, and my personal favorite, for just $5 you can get one of those weird little phone handle pop thingies. So head to FascinationStreetPod.com and show the world that you're proud to be a streetwalker. Special thanks to my good buddy Stephen O'Reilly from the Bar Star Podcast for these dope drum beats. Check out Steve's work at O'Reilly Drums on Instagram or search Stephen O'Reilly on YouTube.
Let's get back into it.
What about when you're done with the audition? When you leave, do you just fret about it for weeks?
Steve, I always contest that there would be world peace if every audition was done as well as it is done in the car on the way home. Because every story would be told so magnificently that there would just be world peace. You know, the best advice Ed Stern gave was, after an audition, go see a movie, go to a baseball game, go do something that makes you not think about it and puts the world in perspective and just forget about it. You have to forget about it. But in order to forget about it, you have to put something in its place, something enjoyable, like a game or a movie or something. It's so funny you asked that. Last night, I woke up at 4 o'clock. I don't know. I couldn't sleep.
Oh, it's because you were nervous about this interview.
Yes, that's right. I was thinking about a scene I did 3 months ago on a show and wondering, maybe I should have gone that way. Was I really listening to that guy? I mean, it never goes away. It eats at you all the time. It's a moving target. Here's a phrase that I loathe in this industry when somebody comes up and says, hey, that scene, you nailed it. You nailed it. I think, no, it's a moving target. That means there's only one way to do it, one way to do any scene, any monologue. Then that's death. Then you're wondering, well, did I nail it or not nail it? Well, there are a whole bunch of nails in that scene. It's a moving target. And because it's a moving target, you're constantly wondering if it could have gone differently.
Well, that sounds like you do not accept compliments very well. So that said, huge fan, love your work.
Thank you. No, I do. I do. You have to learn how to say thank. And yeah, you just, I don't know. It's a crazy mind game that every artist has, I think.
I think so too. And I think that's what makes artists keep striving and keep working in their field. Because realistically, if every time you went out there and nailed it, you'd get bored.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You would get bored, and the pursuit would not be there. Yeah.
No, I mean, look at old what's his name, that My Left Foot guy, Last of the Mohicans dude. What's his name? Danny D, as we call him.
Yeah, Danny D.
So yeah, he comes and he nails it, and then he goes back and he just makes shoes. He's a cobbler because he's bored with it because he's so good.
Yeah, I would venture to say that he goes back and is a cobbler because he is his approach. He plays the character all the time. When he works on something, even when they cut, he is still Abraham Lincoln. When he goes back to his trailer, he stays in character for pretty much the entire shoot. I don't quite understand that. I don't see how you can do that. Part of the joy I find in acting is that bridge that happens in between entering the imaginary circumstance and leaving the imaginary circumstance. I like that. It's fun. It's like playing cowboys and Indians when you were a kid. You really were playing. I was into it. I was truly a cowboy behind a tree, trying to listen to see if horses were coming. I'd put my ear to the ground. But as soon as my mom would call me to dinner, I got so mad. But there was something exciting about that transition of heading to dinner, knowing that I can go back into that imaginary world after dinner.
Yeah, you don't have to live in your treehouse. You can come and go as you please.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's why I think he goes and is a cobbler at home, because I don't know how enjoyable it is. There's got to be a part of you as an actor that is enjoying even the pain. Even when your character is in pain, there is this uncanny satisfaction or joy that I have, and I've shared that with I know other actors feel that as well. It's an odd sense, but part of it is because oh yeah, this is the story we should be telling. And this is so truthful right now. What I'm feeling as this character, there's just an odd joy to it as well.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
So you told me when you decided that you wanted to be an actor as your career, but this is a little bit of a different question, but when did you know that you could? When did you know that you could support your family as a career? And don't give me that same answer of I still don't. Don't do that.
You don't want that answer. Okay.
No. I know it's a wishy-washy business and there's hurdles and struggles and you don't know where your next meal's coming from as far as a job. But when did you know that you weren't going to have to go get a job at a bank or whatever?
Well, we had our son in 99. I had done a couple pilots before then, television pilots. They didn't get picked up, but at the time, pilots paid fairly well. You made some pretty good money. And those last 3 years, I had gotten a few pilots and had gotten enough guest stars that I thought, maybe I can eke out a living here. And I think I was young enough, foolish enough to say, yeah, let's get a house. Let's start a family, because we always wanted to. But that said, I know you didn't want me to say, what I will say is this. The first house we moved into, we couldn't afford, we didn't hire movers. Grabbed 10 of our friends and did the classic promise of beer and pizza after the move-in. And we moved in, and I had everybody put the boxes, once we unloaded the boxes, the cardboard boxes, I had everybody put those empty boxes in the garage. And I said, I'll break them down later. Don't worry about that. Just put them in the garage. The reason I told them that is because I thought for sure in 3 months, the bank would call us up and say, what were we thinking? What were you thinking? There's no way you can afford this house. We're pulling the loan. You got to get out of that house. But we would have all those boxes still in the garage to be able to put all of our stuff back into the boxes and move into an apartment or wherever we needed to move.
Boxes as a safety net.
Yep.
And you're not even a stuntman.
That's right. I was just going to go there as well. You beat me to it. Well done. Well done.
How long did you have those boxes in the garage? How long was that safety net up?
The safety net was up for, I think, a few months until my wife said, what are all these boxes here for? Let's get rid of these boxes. Okay. Okay.
Your wife is an actress as well, yes?
Yes. She and I met at Rutgers. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. You're the second person that I've interviewed who met their fellow actress wife at acting school.
Who else?
You're going to love this.
What?
The great Rance Howard.
Oh, nice.
He met his wife and the mother of Ron and Clint. Her name is Jeannie Spiegel, and they met in acting school. They were actually introduced by a guy that I can't remember his name, but he was the one who played. I guess he played Clint's father on Gentle Ben. That guy.
Oh wow!
Actually introduced. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, that's crazy. Oh wow!
Yeah, really, really cool.
Oh, that's good to know.
As a side note, if you get super bored one of these days,
yeah,
I did have Rance on my show, and it was the last interview he ever did before he passed away.
Oh, wow. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, it's really cool. You should check it out. It's my favorite one of the past ones. Obviously, this is my new favorite one.
I mean, yeah. It's happening right now. Your favorite.
But you should check it out. I got to interview him sitting at his breakfast table in the house that he raised those boys. So it was an honor. It was so cool. All right. Now I know that some actors, and maybe you as well, you sort of feel the struggle of the job, less so than the highs of the job.
Mm.
Do you still do that?
No, I was very fortunate in that I got White Collar, and that was, I've done other shows, other series, two of which on HBO, but White Collar was a long running show. Early on, by the grace of God, something inside me said, ooh, stop and savor this. Enjoy this. This may not happen again. It may. Who knows? But relish this. This is pretty cool. And I was glad I did, because I think it was, for lack of a better term, healthy. Because I certainly know the suffering and the anguish and the wondering if another job is ever going to come. So I made sure I held on to all that wonderful experience and joy that came with working on a show. It was tough work, extremely difficult work, but it's work you love. So, I mean, does that make it difficult? I don't know.
I'm glad you brought up White Collar, which was a USA television show. As far as I'm concerned, White Collar and Psych put USA on the map. Now, my wife and I never miss an episode of White Collar. It was truly appointment television for us. And when my wife's job changed and she was traveling all over the country for a week, sometimes two at a time, we recorded them and waited and watched them together.
Oh, how nice. How nice.
So, first of all, thank you for being so great on that show that it lasted for 81 episodes.
Thank you.
It was amazing. We really, really loved that show. Secondly, you had the wonderful opportunity to work with the amazingly talented Diahann Carroll.
I did, yeah.
I know that Matt probably had more scenes with her based on your characters.
Yeah.
But, and for my younger listeners, Diahann is the first African-American woman to receive a Tony Award for Best Actress, and she also received an Academy Award for Best Actress in the 1974 film Claudine, which came out the year I was born. Now, if you wouldn't mind, would you pretty please just share one little story about your experience with the great Diahann Carroll? I mean, she's a legend, so give me something touching and lovely about working with her.
Oh, I'd be happy to. So Diahann, she was regal almost, and yet she was a little flirt and just always had a twinkle in her eye. Loved it whenever she came on set. Loved it. So one of the 3 episodes I directed happened to take place at the Cotton Club up in Harlem. And it was that episode where Diane's character, June, sings a couple songs. And we thought we should use Diane's voice. Let's have her sing a song. One of the scenes in the episode was to have June, Diane's character, sing a song in the club to a big crowd. So we got 100 extras. And they were in the club and we're all set. And she was so nervous to film this. Now, she had already recorded the song and we had that track on the set. So she came on the set. We had hired an extra who was a musician at the piano, hired another guy who was a musician to play bass, but, just to fake it, for lack of a better word, to fake it, while she mouthed the song that we had recorded earlier. So she came on the set at the Cotton Club, and she was nervous because it had been a long time since she had sung in front of a crowd. So I introduced her to the extras, and they were all in their places at the tables, in the seats. And I said, Diahann, so as you know, we've recorded it. All you have to do is mouth it. And if you want to just kind of sing a little bit, however you want to do it, it's up to you. I've got 3 cameras. They're pointed. So I've got a close up on you. I've got one wide of the crowd. We're ready to go when you are. She said, okay, I'm ready. The track started and she hit that first note and she started singing the whole song and singing it full volume with a microphone on. I'm behind the camera. I look at the musicians and I kind of do the circle motion, and they start playing as well. They know the song. They start playing because, they're these cool veteran jazz musicians who know the tune. They start playing. I look over at the sound guy. I tell him to turn down the track because we don't need it. It'd be much better live. And before you know it, like within 3 or 4 measures, she was singing the song completely, and we got the whole thing live. And the crowd, all the extras, just went crazy afterwards. And it was just one of those magical moments where Diahann Carroll sang to all of us, the cast and crew, live at the Cotton Club. And there is the sound guy. He's holding the boom. Frank was his name, big jazz fan. And he's listening to her. And we're all listening. And tears are streaming down his cheek because it's so beautiful to hear her sing this gorgeous ballad. And it was a magical moment.
That was beautiful. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Those listening, Diahann did pass away about 3 months ago. So R.I.P. Diahann, you will be missed.
Yes, indeed. And then, so here's what's great is, so after, everybody claps. I walk up and she looks at me and says innocently, "How was that? Did we get it? Did we get it?" And I said, "Oh, you little shit. You know damn well we got it. That was beautiful."
That's awesome.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, if you like what I'm doing, click the Amazon banner at the top of the homepage on FascinationStreetPod.com and do all of your shopping through Amazon. Once you click on it and it takes you to Amazon, you can bookmark it or add it to your favorites, and you won't have to go to my site each time. It helps me keep the show going, and again, thanks for listening.
Hey, are you interested in getting from A to B while sitting? At Detroit Bikes, we've got a new product that I think you're going to love. It's a bicycle. It's got 2 wheels, hence the bi. And the sickle is because it's a cycle that your wheels go in. So this is a product where you've got a seat. You are actually sitting while moving.
Wow.
And it's as easy as just pedaling, pushing with your legs. So we think that customers are going to love this product, and we hope you'll check it out at www.detroitbikes.com.
www.detroitbikes.com.
Let's get back into it.
Now, obviously, people know you from White Collar. People might also know you from Carnival or Seinfeld, even Friends. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe your best work was,
you're going
to love this, Dinner at Tiffany's. Tiffany Amber Thiessen had a cooking show on the Food Network where she would cook and invite her friends to her house. And you were on, 4 episodes or something like that.
You're right. That was my best work because it was my most honest work. I love food. And Tiffany is a great cook. Whenever she would call me up, she said, "Tim, do you want to come do an episode?" "Yes, I do. Don't even finish it. When is it? What time do I need to be there?" Think about it. All I had to do was just show up and eat and have small talk with her and whoever was on.
And you were already friends, so it's not like you had to work at small talk even.
Oh, it's like family. I love her. And I love Brady, her husband, and their kids. Oh, yeah. Oh, so fun.
All right. Well, to probably tens of millions of boys in a generation such as my own, you got to do what 10 million of us wanted to do. You got to be Tiffany Amber Thiessen's husband for 81 episodes. This was like 6 years or something, right?
Yeah.
So that said, do people hate you on the street? Do they throw tomatoes at you out of jealousy?
No, not a. I get. This is what people will come up. Guys will come up to me and say, dude, man, you were with Kelly Kapowski. You're married to Kelly Kapowski. I said, that's right, I am. And let me tell you something. She is just as beautiful in person as she is on film. Oh, she's great. You know, I was fortunate enough to have the role. So Matt got the role first, and then I got the role, and then they were looking for Elizabeth. And I read with many, many wonderful, talented women who they were considering. And then they brought in Tiffany, and it was just one of those things where you knew, oh, that's her. That's it. And she's so pretty, but she's far from standoffish. I mean, she came in the room, gave me a hug. We'd never met before, and I was taken right away. I was smitten. She won me over, and we've been great pals ever since.
And so hopefully you tell all those jealous dudes, not only did I get to be her husband for 6 years, but when that was all over, she invited me to her house and cooked for me regularly.
That's right. That's right. No, she fed me.
That's awesome. What do you get noticed for most on the street?
I think it's white collar, simply because it was on for so long. But I tell you, it's funny. Even though I shot it 23 years ago, Seinfeld, people still recognize me from Seinfeld.
Now, do they recognize you as what's her name's boyfriend, or do they recognize you from the Bizarro, or did you play the same character in both of them?
It was kind of the same character in both of them. Jerry had come up to me towards the end of rehearsals one day while I was doing the first episode, and he asked me if I wanted to do the second one. And I said, I'd love to. And so then we had to change the name, because I think my first character's name was, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't Kevin, and they wanted to be Kevin for Bizarro, Jerry. So, they recognized me for that quite a bit, especially in New York.
Oh, I bet.
Every time I go to New York, people stop. And I was on the Today Show because they had the 20-year reunion. So wait a minute. So I guess it wasn't 23. It was 20. I don't know. I'm awful at math. I shot it in 97.
So 47 years. Gotcha. Now.
Yep. Yeah.
And you were also in Friends, weren't you?
I was.
You were in the one where she had a baby or something?
The one where she had a baby. Rachel Harris played my wife on the episode of Friends. She's funny. She is funny personally as well as in front of a camera. Yeah, I got to do that. And that was many moons have passed over the mountains since I've done Friends and Seinfeld.
Well, as many times as Friends has been syndicated and whatnot, that had to have paid for your house, right? Just kidding. No. But, there is huge outcry that I think as of January 1, Friends is no longer on Netflix.
I saw that.
So there was pandemonium in the streets, man.
Yeah, there was. There will be blood. They took away a number of things that kind of were shocking. I don't know. They have to rotate that library.
It's going to pop up somewhere. It's way too popular to not. So there might be a pause on your mortgage payment checks coming in, but they'll start back up. So just real quick, back to the audition process. You have a fairly interesting story about how you got your role on the Carnival TV show. There is a lesson there. Can you tell that story?
Oh, on Carnival.
If I remember correctly, you went in to audition for a thing that you didn't get, and then 2 years later, that casting agent called you and said, hey, come in for this thing. I feel like the lesson there is that definitely don't burn any bridges, and you never know when something will pay off. It might not be immediate.
You don't know. It's so true. That's another lesson in auditioning. Yeah, I had gone in for something a good 2 years ago prior to Carnival, but they remembered me from that audition 2 years ago that I did not get, but yet I gave it my all, and they remembered that. I will say this to all the young actors out there. If you don't get a role in something, make sure you walk out of there thinking, well, if they don't cast me in this, they're going to remember me and they'll cast me in something else, because it will happen. That will happen. And I will say that both casting directors from Carnival have since cast me in other things as well. Make an impression. Don't take anything out of the door with you. Leave it all right there. Leave it all in the room.
Glenn Morshower had a similar story. Well, not a similar story, the exact same story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you still teach acting, but he does. And in his classes, he teaches just that. Leave it all and make him remember you, because it might not lead to this job, but it could lead to another one.
Good. Yeah. That's gospel for auditioning.
I want to talk about one more thing before we talk about you dipping your baby toe into a new sort of career. But before we get there, you do something that's pretty cool every year for your kids on their birthday. What is it, and why do you do it?
Oh, are you talking about reading them If?
I am.
Oh, great. So, well, way before my son was born, I read a poem, If, by Rudyard Kipling. I think it's a beautiful poem and it's powerful. And politically, come to find out that Kipling wasn't as favorable as some other poets of the past. But regardless, that poem is moving. I don't have it memorized, but it's a lot about if you can win at something and be humble, or if you can lose at something and not be too concerned about the loss and move on ahead right away. All these great things. It's from his book, Rewards and Fairies, if ever anybody wants to take a look at it. But it's something I read to my kids every day on their birthday, and I started when they were just infants. And I remember one year my son, I was reading, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. It's that kind of thing. And the end of the poem says, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. It's a great poem. So I was reading it to him when he was about 3. And it's, written in 19th century, or maybe early 20th. And I asked him, what do you think about that? I was hoping we were looking forward to a nice discussion, maybe. Might have been 4. I said, what's that say to you? And he looked at me and he says, I have no idea. Can we go out and play?
That's awesome. Why do you read it every year?
It's just a nice reminder of how to approach life. And, I always envied, here's why. This is the real answer. This is the truth.
Oh, finally the truth.
Yeah, right. No, but yeah, it's for them so that they hear it every year. But I've always envied and admired those people who can read a poem, can memorize a poem and have it at their access at any time. And I thought, well, I'm not going to make them memorize this poem, but gosh, if I read it to them at least once a year, maybe when they hear it and when they're older, I know that poem. My dad used to read me that poem. And maybe it will inspire them to maybe have a memorized poem or two in their memory bank. I think that's a good thing to have. I think to have a few memorized poems is not a bad thing to have for anybody.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now we get on to our final subject. You have a friend who is, I would love to call him a friend of mine, but in reality, he probably wouldn't say the same just because we've really only talked once or twice.
Well, he speaks well.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Previous guest of the show, Doug Richardson, the guy who wrote Die Hard 2 and Bad Boys and a whole bunch of other cool things. He is a friend of yours.
Yes, he is.
As a matter of fact, he is responsible for connecting us for today's interview. So I know you're listening, Doug. Thank you, sir. But Doug has written a series of books about a detective named Lucky Dey, D-E-Y, and you narrate the audiobooks. So how are you liking this new leg of your career? And tell everybody how this came to be, if you wouldn't mind.
Not at all. First and foremost, I love it. It's great. Actors, directors, writers. And because you're part of the interview process, you're part of it too. We all are telling a story. We are enhancing a story. And this is as old as time, telling a story. One of the first acts of religion was to tell a story. And so when I read his books, when I narrate them, and not just narrate them, but do all the characters, it taps into a part of me that I love, that storyteller part. It also is a bit of a personal challenge that I'm overcoming because I'm just a little dyslexic. And And I also have a bit of a speech impediment that I have to work on. So I laugh because the woman, my friend and assistant, Grace, she does the editing for it. And she has an issue whenever she hears people's saliva popping or anything like that. It bothers her. So the two of us are just misfits in the world of doing audiobooks. And we crack up over it. Anyway, it gets done though. Doug came to me. He was listening to some other voiceover actors' auditions, and he just wasn't quite finding the right fit. And he emailed me, I think, or maybe he left a message. I remember sitting in the parking lot of my daughter's. My daughter was inside playing volleyball, practicing. No parents were allowed to watch yet. So I was in the parking lot. I think he called and said, do you know any good voiceover actors? Anybody who's willing to read the book? And I've always wanted to do that. I always thought it would be a great challenge. And I thought, I think I'd be pretty good because I certainly read enough books to my kids. So I didn't know anybody who did audiobooks. I knew one guy, but he was in New York and he was busy at the time. He was doing a play. So I thought, well, I just threw it out there. I said, Doug, do you want me to do it? And fortunately, he said, yeah, that would be great. Now, I laid down a couple paragraphs for him, so that he could say, yeah, definitely do it. And fortunately, he did. And from then on, we've had this really nice relationship. We're on, he's writing the 7th book now, but that will soon be out, and I'll record that as well. I love the characters. I love Lucky Dey. I love Gonzo, his wife or his partner at the time, his adopted kids, some of the other characters in this world. And they're great books because it's a great story. They're thrillers. And there's a wonderful family dynamic that he has with this Lucky Dey character. But also, it's an homage to Los Angeles and Los Angeles right now. But not just the well-known parts of Los Angeles, but the subcultural parts of Los Angeles that we some natives, I'm not a native, but we Angelinos who have been here for at least 20 years, that we know as well. And it's just wonderful, and it's rich and interesting places and cross streets and intersections that make up Los Angeles. It's a pleasure to tell these stories. And it's also an excuse so Doug and I can go to Casa Vega, which is a local Mexican restaurant, and have great tacos once a month or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you've done all of the books that he's completed so far?
I have, yeah.
Nice.
And we'll keep going, I think.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't sound like he was showing any signs of slowing down last I talked to him.
I don't think
so
he will.
That is super awesome. Well, Tim DeKay,
Indeed.
before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
No, but it's interesting you mentioned Mr. Howard. His son, Ron, is executive producer of a show that I'm recurring on called 68 Whiskey, which will be on Paramount TV starting January 15th.
Oh, cool.
From the network that brought you Yellowstone.
This is a medical unit in the United States Army.
And executive producers Brian Grazer and Ron Howard.
Our mission, keeping soldiers alive. Go, let's get out! I got him!
It's gonna be okay! Transporting rugs and body bags?
This was just brought in here by mistake, but no worries. I'm just gonna take him to the morgue.
You think you can do whatever you want to while you're over here. The entitlement doctors and medics possess drives me crazy.
Been a rumor going around about you and Durkin.
Sasquatch finds out you're gonna need a coffin.
The basis of all business transactions is trust.
I didn't come all the way here from the south side of Chicago to get ripped off by some drug dealers.
This place is like the Wild West.
Identify yourself.
Private Anthony Petruccelli? That's not my goat.
Why can't we have movie night like every other base?
What? You're so far over your head, you have no idea.
Is that a dance move?
You have any idea where we're going?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. And I'm told it has something to do with preserving the American way of life.
Glad you got it all figured out.
68 Whiskey, new series premieres Wednesday, January 15th at 10 on Paramount Network.
Everybody go check that out.
Go check that out. It's kind of, some people aren't going to know what this means. Some will, but it's basically MASH in Afghanistan.
Oh my goodness, Mashghanistan. That's awesome.
MASH, I didn't even think of that. That's why you do what you do so well.
You're awesome. Tim, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Tim DeKay, and I've got some great fans. We have a website called teamdecay.org or com. I don't know. And I don't tweet nearly as often as I should, although I do have a Twitter account, mostly Instagram.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, Tim DeKay, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your busy schedule. I'm glad that finally you made it back home so that we could do this. I know you were working out of town for a while, so thank you for, putting this on the schedule and letting this happen.
This is great. Thank you so much. It was you asked good questions. It's a good conversation.
I appreciate that, Jim. And if you ever happen to be in the San Antonio or Austin area, holler at a fat kid and I'll buy you something to drink, man.
Awesome. It's a date. I'll do it.
All right, cool. Thanks again, Tim. You have a great rest of your week.
You as well, Steve.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
As always, thanks for listening, Streetwalkers. And don't forget, follow the show on Twitter at FascinationSTPD. On Instagram at Fascination Street Pod. Follow the podcast page on Facebook at Fascination Street Podcast. And of course, you can always email me at fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and rate us on iTunes. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence. Used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.